A lot of people think that youth ministry is just coming together, kids eating pizza, having fun events, and that's it, kind of like a glorified babysitting service.
Right.
But
Yeah,
it's not. It's
it's
not.
definitely not.
So on this show, we're going to talk about discipleship. Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Keys to Student Ministry. I'm your host, Pastor Herb, because that's what my students call me. And I have a guest on the show today, another guest, and have my boy Stephen Hernandez.
Yo, what's up, everyone?
Yo, and so Stephen, we go way back, way back.
Back when my name
Wait,
was
what year
Jose.
was that? Yeah, man. It's a funny
I think
story for that one.
2007, maybe? I
Is
think
that
2007.
2007?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
started
so
at SUM at 2006, but I didn't meet you till
the
2007.
next year. Yep. So we went to School of Urban Missions, Bible College at the time, now Theological Seminary. It was in Oakland, but now it is in Sacramento.
Yeah.
So if you want to go to a Bible college because you feel like you have the call of God in your life, then you can
Work
go there.
hours.
Yeah, work. I wonder if they still do work out.
Not the same way we we used to. Not the same at all.
We were the janitors. That's what
We were.
we cleaned the bathrooms. We did everything. So, but yo, it's good to have you on the show, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's dope that you're doing this, and I appreciate you having me on. It's always good when we connect and collab.
Absolutely. And then after, in a moment, you're going to introduce yourself and the things that you do, and then what role you played in youth ministry. But before we get started with that, I came up with this new term for this segment, and I'm gonna call it key slang. There you go.
Banging keys.
It may sound like that. I think it may sound like that, but here we go. All right. So the key slang for this show is vibe check. All right. It's vibe check. So if you ever heard your students say vibe check, you have it right here. The definition is assessing the mood or energy someone brings. Here it is in the sentence. He's given a weird vibe. Total vibe check needed. Now I don't know. Say total vibe check. This is Chat GPT, but I heard it a few times on TikTok. And if your students say vibe check, and you don't know what it means, there it is. It means that somebody is in an off mood. And so I guess you need to check their vibes to make sure they're cool. I don't know how you check it. Maybe you go up to them and say hi. Maybe, see what they're about. But that's the key slang for the show. Vibe check. So yeah, now you are in the know. So if you hear vibe check, don't act new to it. All right, you true
Hopefully,
to
they
it.
don't say it about you as a youth pastor, youth minister,
That you need to
because
vibe check.
because they might, and it's all
They
right.
might say, "Yo, man, Pastor Herb is off, man. He need a vibe check. He need a total vibe check."
I wonder if this is what our youth pastors thought about us with our words and our slang.
The slang back. What was y'all slang back in Texas when you was in high school?
Pretty much the same as
You
everyone
said vibe
else's.
check.
Nah, no, I'm saying same as probably Cali, except we never said hecka. That was
Yeah.
that was that was something new. But same old things.
What's one, man? Give me one Texas slang. Already? Is it already? Did y'all say
Yeah,
that?
yeah, already. Tombout, that was another one. Bet right now, that's another
Yeah.
one that's
Bet
yeah,
that's
everyone
big
says
now.
bet.
There it is. Well, listen, y'all. We got Stephen Hernandez on the show, and I just kind of want to give the mic to him, or the floor to him, or mic, whatever, to him, and just share a little bit about, who you are, what you do, and what you do now, and then kind of what roles did you play in student ministry?
Yeah, so again, my name is Stephen Hernandez. So I am originally from Houston, Texas. So I have a bachelor's in biblical studies and minor in youth ministry and master's of divinity from Gordon Conwell. I'm back teaching at SUM, so I'm a adjunct professor again. I've been doing that for a good minute. And I wear a few different hats. So Herbert maybe hasn't told y'all, but we used to rock the mic together. Yeah, so I rap, content creation, videography business as well. And as far as like in youth ministry, so I started off doing as you know, but they probably don't know, doing a little bit of everything. We've done children ministry, prison ministry, youth ministry, anything and everything. But I was a youth pastor. That was honestly, I thought that was gonna be what I was for the rest of my life. Like I just love working with
Mm.
teenagers, and I still do. I have two programs that I run. One is I teach students how to rap to build leadership, self esteem, and positive outlets. And then also I have an entrepreneurship class that I teach to students for a nonprofit as well. So there's always a bunch of things that I'm doing, but yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Man, all that, all of that. And he also has a podcast, y'all. What's the name of this podcast?
Yeah, yeah. So it's called Paradox Kingdom. So it's a YouTube channel and also podcast where we just talk about anything and everything. Really, the kind of tag that I'm kind of running with is fact checking atheists and Christians, because
Mm,
there's a lot of atheists coming out with certain things that it's like, let's fact check that and see if that's really what the Bible says. And then there's also some Christians running around saying some stuff that's not biblically accurate as well.
mm. Oh, that's dope. So check out the Paradox podcast. It sounds like decent. And also, we were in youth ministry together. We were in the
How long has my
program.
cat been in the background?
See that cat?
I'm gonna have to edit that out.
Let the cat stay. Let the cat stay. But no, we were in youth ministry together as well. School of Urban Missions. They had a program called Points of Light in Oakland, California, and we were 13 youth pastors going into 7 districts of Oakland, and we had Friday nights. The Friday
Yeah,
nights, students from all over Oakland would come in, have a good time, and then they'll hear the word. And the cool thing from that is, we had some students. I wouldn't say a lot. We had some students that eventually went to SUM and graduated, or
graduate.
even now are doing great things. So,
Yeah,
we go
yeah,
way
that's
back.
true.
We go back there.
Way
So
back.
it's only fitting that I bring them on, and we could discuss some things tonight on this podcast, or I say tonight or today. You don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but yeah, tonight's topic we're getting into is keys to discipleship. What is the key to discipling students? What does it look like? How do you do it with school schedule, possibly sports? But, on top of that, a lot of people think that youth ministry is just coming together, kids eating pizza, having fun events, and that's it, kind of like a glorified babysitting service.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's not. It's
It's
not.
definitely not.
So on this show, we're going to talk about discipleship because not only are they eating pizza, and yes, not only do we get a chance to do cool things and stuff because they're teens, they still want to have fun, but at the same time, there is a deep dive into this to where we try to help them mature spiritually where they are. So, got Stephen
Yeah.
Hernandez on here to talk about this discipleship and just kind of let's just start there. What was your experience with discipling a student?
Yeah. So I'll jump even further back. And so I think this kind of subconsciously, this is kind of where my motto of discipleship came from. So I remember, so I was in ninth grade, some of my friends invited me to church. So I started hanging out with a whole new group of friends from school, from middle school to high school. In that summertime, I had a party and a bunch of other dudes. They went to my party and we started hanging out together. We started going to clubs and stuff like that. It was a teenager club, but we went, and from there, they invited me to church. And I was like, man, I'm not really into this type of thing. They would go there for the girls, but I was like, in my heart, I felt that that was wrong. So I was like, nah, I don't want to be part of that. But years later, I think in 10th grade, so that was in ninth grade, whatever. 10th grade, I went back, and I won't still show or tell the whole story, but I'll jump to this part. And Pastor Juan, as you know, he heard that
Mm-hmm.
I can rap, and they were having what's called fine arts contests, and basically it's all the students come together and to showcase whether they're preaching or they're rapping or do graffiti or breakdance and things like that for God. And I wasn't really saved. I was kind of like going back, I was still living the life, but I was still going to church
Mm-hmm.
every Wednesday. And I told him, I was like, yeah, I want to rap. And then he's like, well, spit something for me. And I was like, I can't. I'm in church and it has cuss words. And he's like, it's all right, bro. You know how he always thought. He's like, it's all right, bro. Do it
Mm-hmm.
anyway. And I was like, you sure? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right. So I rapped for him. And that was kind of the model that I kind of took on to at SUM. And it was subconscious, because whenever I would talk to students, I would ask them, what do you like doing? So one was, I was finding what were they interested in, what do they like, what is their spark, what is the thing that they love doing, and I would connect to it on that level. So one of the keys is ask questions, get to know
Mm-hmm.
them for them. Sometimes, which I'll talk about it later, but in general, they really don't care how much we know until they know how much we care.
Yep, that's key.
And when we're interested, yeah, when we're interested in them, then you can see the difference. I remember at SUM, one of the girls, she had a boyfriend that was not saved, and she was trying to get him saved. And he came to campus, and I did the same thing with him. I was like, "Hey, man, I heard you rap." I was like, "Can you spit something?" He's like, "Nah, we're on a Christian campus. I can't spit nothing." He got all cuss words. It was so funny, right? Because that's the
Sound like
same
you.
thing that I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, "Man, it's cool. Spit it anyway." And then he did, and then we connected, and then we built a little bit of a rapport, not a relationship or anything like that, but there was that he started to see and say, "Man, Christians are different than what I thought they were. They're not
Yeah.
as judgmental." Um, so, and then I wanted to say this as well, and then we'll continue the conversation. But um, in the Jewish times, especially when Jesus's times, the way that you would find a rabbi or a mentor is that you would go and seek them out, right? Like, let's say if I'm going to Herbert, I'm like, man, this dude's a good rabbi. He's cool. He's hip. He knows the word. He's been to Bible college. He's been doing this. And I would go to you and I would say, hey, can I be your disciple? You're like, go home and think about it, and then tomorrow come back and tell me.
Yeah.
Then I would come to you the next day and I was like, hey, Herbert, I thought about it. I prayed about it. I feel like you'll be a good mentor of mine. And you're like, okay, I appreciate that. Go home and think about it, and then come back and tell me tomorrow. So
Mm,
you would do that to me 3 times. Because one, you're trying to check, like, in a sense, you're not trying to waste your time, but also you're trying to check them, like, are you serious? Do you really know what the commitment is to be my disciple?
mm,
But we see it very different in Jesus's time, because he actually goes out to the disciples and he calls them, and he goes to where they're at. He goes to the tax collector. He goes to the fisherman. He goes to them where they're at,
right.
and he calls them. And then he even uses their language, right? He says the Peter, "You'll be fishers of men." He's like, "You
Mm,
were a fisherman, now you're gonna be a fisherman." He had dope wordplay, but he also had that interest in people,
mm. And
and
that
so that,
really, oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
I was gonna say that became kind of a model subconsciously that I didn't even know, but I would just find out, what are you interested in? Is it Pokemon? Is it video
Mm,
games? Is it sports? What are you interested in? What do you love doing? And even if I didn't know, because there's a lot of stuff I didn't know about what they were interested in, I was like, I have no idea about
mhm,
Pokemon. I was at the age where I was battle rapping, where everybody was playing Pokemon. So I don't know nothing about Pokemon. So I would just ask them questions. Tell me about that. Why do you like that? What's interesting? And I was genuinely interested in what they
mhm.
cared about. And that became one of the ways that I was able to connect with students.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that there's some sort of connection point. And I don't know if you remember this strategy is relate, create, convict, reveal. Is that how it goes?
That sounds good. It sounds good. Yeah.
But just like relate on something, like find something
Is that like
relatable.
evangelism or
Yeah,
discipleship?
it's evangelism.
Okay.
So it's
Okay. I like
like
that.
I find something, okay, all right, let's like say let's rap for me or let's play Pokemon or will you play 2K? And then you connect, then they coming, right? So now got them there, and I think the discipleship part is key because now that you got them, now they have a different outlook on Christians because that's true. A lot of people think like, man, if I go to this Christian thing, I can't. And we're not encouraging cussing in church and like that, but
Exactly. Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
like keeping people away, feel like they have to clean up before
Yep.
they go into church. Like when they find out, like, wait, I don't have to clean myself up before I come here. Like people are embracing me and want to know more about me, and so now they keep coming. And so what we're talking about now is, okay, they're coming
Yep.
and they're hungry
Yep.
and you got them, right? You found a connection point. So how do you, I guess the question for those who are listening or watching and you have a few students that's coming to your ministry, they've been around for a little bit, but never really made that full commitment. How do you get them to cross over and to stay connected? Like how much discipleship play into that, like keep like retaining them?
Yeah. So I'll say this and then I'll kind of work on that. But another thing that really helped, and this just happened to help because it was again an accident, was
Mm.
putting going in real life situations with them. You know, in the dorm, I didn't know this until afterwards, but some of the students, they would come into the dorm and I was cooking. They're like, "Hey, can I hang out with you?" I was like,
Mhm.
"I'm cooking." He's like, "Cool, can I do that with you?" I was like, "If you want to." I mean, I'm just cooking. They're like, "All right, cool." So I showed one of the students how to cook, and I was just learning myself how to cook.
Yeah, I'm about to say,
I
man, you know
would
how to
take him
cook, man. That's
to
all right.
go. What'd you say?
So you know how to cook, man.
I do now. Yeah, I mean, I learned in college. Yeah. But I would take them when I was going grocery shopping. I would take them, to a restaurant, and
Mm.
really, it was a life on life experience to show them because they would see whenever someone cut me off, how am I going to interact with them? Am I going to cuss them out as well? Am I going to flip the bird? What am I going to do? How am I going to interact? And they would see it. And then also to the waiter, am I going to treat them as a slave, or am I going to treat them
Mhm.
as a person? So those real life on life connections as well was really important to have because then they see you really are living this, right? Like you're not just
Yeah.
saying this, you're not just preaching it, but I'm seeing you go through things that I'm going through and I'm seeing how you respond as well. So that's important. As far as like discipleship, so they are coming, you already got that connection. So the thing that I wanted to say is that discipleship is very different in the East than it is in the West. So we live in
Mm.
the West.
What's
Again, so the
exciting?
way that they decide the way we do discipleship is you come on Wednesday, you come on Sunday, or you come on a day, you sit down and I lecture you, right? I talk, you be quiet, you listen, right? You're the disciple, you be quiet. It's like school. The way that they did it back then was like apprenticeship, like becoming a plumber, becoming a
Hmm.
welder. You're doing it as I do. And
Yeah.
so this might be another thing that you were talking about where I do and you watch.
Mhm.
And then we do together and I explain. And then you do and you explain and then you go and do it, right? Like you're taking those different levels. Um and so it's interesting because we talk, I think in ministry in general, like a lot of books talk about like modeling, right? Like model important habits. They see you praying, they see that. But also it's important to explain as well.
Yeah.
And so you as a father, and me as when I became a father, I started to understand a lot more things as well. Like teaching my kids how to brush their teeth. I can tell them go up and down and side to side and do all that. Or I can model for them. Like this is,
Yeah.
they see me brushing my teeth every morning, every night,
Mhm.
whatever. But if I don't explain to them what I'm actually doing, they're not going to understand. Right. Like it's the
Mm.
difference from them just seeing me to explaining to them doing it and helping them along the way. So I think, and I learned this as being a professor as well, because I would teach the students like how to hermeneutics, how to read and interpret the Bible. But it wasn't until I started to do exercises in class where we would take down a passage of scripture and I would show them what I'm thinking about when I'm reading this, and I would show them how different passages connect and things like that. That's really whenever they started to connect and say, "Oh wow, now I know what you're actually talking about. Now I see what you're actually doing." So that's a whole nother thing. Um, and then you could probably ask another question on that because I don't think I fully answered your question.
Nah, I think you did like getting them to stay, retain them, kind of what you said. Hey, can I chill with you? I'm cooking. Yeah, I just want to watch you cook. I just want to, you know, I just
Yeah,
want to be in your presence. You know what I mean? And I think like small stuff like that, like it's small but yet it's big. I was reading a book. I forgot the name of it, but it's talking about like kind of like a doghouse. What was it? It was all right. You know the book. Now I lost it. But anyways, the youth ministry book, and I'm gonna get it later. But it's talking about the doghouse model. And what that was is the youth pastor, had to build a doghouse, right? And so he knew a kid that was in his ministry that was taking wood shop, but he wasn't fully there. But he saw opportunities like, you know what? With permission of the parents, he invited them over, to help build the doghouse. But in that building the doghouse, they were having conversation. You know what I'm saying? They're talking about the Lord, salvation, what does it mean to be a Christian? So all this stuff, and then he's watching him as he interacts with his wife and his kids.
yeah,
And then when you see stuff like that, you're like, oh wow, like this is what it's really about. I've actually seen this guy that I see on Sundays or Saturdays, whatever you guys meet. And, I've seen him outside of that and he's still doing the same thing, but now I'm like actually seeing it modeled, Like, so what he or she is telling me to do, you know, I see it played out. And so it's
Yeah.
easier for me to kind of obtain now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's another thing that I wanted to talk about is working together with youth as well. And I think you do a good job on this and asking input. What do y'all want to do? What are some things and kind of letting them to
Yeah.
feel like they have ownership over it. And maybe you remember that story of Nikki Cruz,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yep.
was it the crossing the switchblade? And there's a part in the story where he's talking about where the pastor was saying, "Hey, I want you to take the offering." Right? And so, students are putting money in it and he had an option. Should I take the money? Like he's like, I got all this money right here and just thing. Or should I do what's right? And so he was challenged to
Mhm.
become what he was supposed to be, right? So part of what we do is challenging them as well. But we want to work with them. We want to ask their opinion and students are like really, really creative. They're just not challenged enough or sometimes their opinions are not as really seen sometimes in the house or even at
Yeah.
school, right? Like they have these really good opinions, but no one gives them the opportunity to actually start thinking and learning.
Mm.
Because that's another part. I know you talked about it earlier. Was that as youth ministers, we're working on to help them to be spiritually mature, but also mentally, emotionally, financially, like
Mm-hmm.
holistic. Like God cares about the whole person. Our school systems don't do it. Sometimes parents don't have the knowledge or the wisdom how to understand or take care of finances, or so they're not getting that as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
as ministers, I mean, we play so many roles. We're the dad, we're the coach, we're the brother,
Mm-hmm.
we're the all these different things for the students, right? So they look up to us. So it's important as well. And it's a burden and it's hard, but it's also something that's very rewarding. It's so
Yeah.
amazing and it's we're playing a part of loving them as God loves us.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's true. So if y'all listening, like these are the roles you play. Like sometimes people ask me, like, what do you do all day? Like if you're full
For
time
real?
ministry, like what did you just like sit and wait for a sermon? Like one of the students say, maybe just hit up Chat GPT and just ask, hey, what's the next sermon series? Like, nah, like there's a lot going to that. I think you broke that down perfectly. It's a holistic thing. You checking in, you visiting, you know,
Yeah.
you going to their games, or you possibly maybe the coach sometimes. Sometimes youth pastors are coaching somewhere else. Or you're the father, you're the brother, you're the uncle, you all these different hats. But I
Yeah.
think all that again goes into discipleship because it's not
Yeah.
like you said, it's life on life. And I remember Paul saying it's like not only, sharing the gospel of God with you, but we're also sharing our
Mm,
lives. And
that's
so
good.
this is outside of the four walls. This is like me. You see me in Walmart, or I'm going to your birthday party, or you coming to something that we're doing, and every moment we're showing. And so I think that's we're looking at that, and it's still like it's unintentional, but it's intentional. You know what I mean? Like it's unintentional because we're there, we're at the party, we're at the game and stuff like that. We want them to see us, but then I think it's intentional because we know why we're there. You know what I mean? You know what's the goal. But my question for you is, all right, so a kid is saved, they just starting to walk with the Lord. How do you determine, I guess when to say take this said kid under my wing? Is there a noticing, or do you just, jump in and hey, this kid say let's start something with them?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. So, and it looks a little bit different for everyone because it depends on how many leaders you have. The reason I say that is because, in a sense, every student that walks through the door is your student, is your disciple. They're at
Mm-hmm.
different journeys. Like, I'm a very good example of like an anomaly. Like, even Pastor Juan says this because I would go to church on Wednesday only. I wouldn't go on Sunday. As soon as service was out, we would leave because I started to go to church by myself because one of my friends told me about hell and I didn't want to go to hell. And I started to go to this church. And my house was a hangout house. So everybody was always at my house. They started to notice I wasn't there on Wednesday. And they're like, bro, where you at on Wednesday? We always at your house. And I was like, man, I go to church. And they're like, can we come? I was like, if y'all want to. So we would roll deep. We would like 15 of us in 3 cars. We would go to
Wow.
church, and
That's
it
like a youth
wasn't.
pastor's dream, like having the
Yeah,
students roll up in 3 cars deep, bringing other students.
yeah, and it was just like that's just where I was, and it's funny because Pastor Juan always makes the joke because we would always get there late because of we're waiting for everyone to get there to my house, and then we would leave, and he's like, when Stephen came in, we did a second offering because he always had money, and so that's his favorite story to tell for some reason, but we would roll deep. And so whatever, again, I was living 1 foot in, 1 foot out for probably about 2 years. I've exited for 2 years. And then all of a sudden I was like, all right, God, I'm all in. And so I didn't have the discipleship. Part of it was because of me. I didn't want to be around Christians because they seem corny, right? I
Mm,
didn't want to give up the girls. I didn't want to give up that. I just wanted God. And I didn't understand that because I grew up Catholic background. Me and you talked about this
right.
before. I thought I was okay because I did the sinner's prayer every Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I was okay. So I didn't know I needed to go deeper. I didn't know there was a deeper. So I'm a good example of that. Everybody's on a different journey and we have no idea really what's going on because we're like,
Exactly.
man, like some of our students are like, oh, they're doing so amazing. They're out there preaching, they're winning souls, and then they backslid, and then they're like, nothing, right? They're not bearing any fruit. Versus some other ones like me, it's like, man, this kid is there even like, God, can you save this kid? And
Mm-hmm.
then they turn out and they actually go to Bible college and love God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they're on different journeys. So at one point, every student is our disciple, right? We're just walking with them at a different part of their journey. The other part is that really, if you have other leaders, helping them to see, because your strengths is going to be different than the other guy. If you're not into skating, even though you're taking an interest, but you have one of your people that used to
Right.
be loving and skating, maybe they're a great connection, and let that be their disciple in a sense, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're discipling your leaders and students, and then your leaders are discipling students,
Right.
right? So it's a continual thing of we're discipling others, others are discipling. Like it's a continual thing.
Mm,
And I think that's really a big issue that we have in most churches, where it's, if I'm like, let's say most people, I'm a Christian, I go to church, and then the pastor preaches to me. I think my job is to go get people, my coworkers and family, and bring them to the church so the pastor can disciple them. And that's not what we're supposed to be doing,
mm,
right? Like discipleship, we are disciples that make disciples. That's literally like the
yeah.
Great Commission, right? Go and make disciples, not just pastors, not just the varsity, the junior varsity. There's not
Mm-hmm.
that, all of you. And so if I have a student, this is this is the test I used to do at students in Points of Light. I would give them the Jesus what verse. And I was like, if you're serious about this, you want to know God, you want to grow, then you're going to memorize this one verse and then tell it to me the next time I see you. And if they didn't even open up the Bible and cry, I was like, then you're not ready yet. I'll still love you. I'll still spend time with you. To go to that deeper level, you know what I mean? Like you kind of you see it as well what level people
Mm,
are at. So you kind of challenge them. You give them tests and things like that, and see. Another thing is calling them out and say, hey, I'm gonna go street preach. You gonna street preach with me? And then sometimes I'll be like, yeah, jump in. Like my daughter and my son. Well, my daughter more so. Last year, I think it was last year or the year before, we went out, and I rapped and she rapped with me, and she read
mm,
John 3:16, and she didn't preach a lot, but she just read it and said, God loves you. You know what I mean? So
mm-hmm.
little things, and I'm like, all right. Where my son, he's not ready yet. He's 2 years younger, but still he's not at that same hunger level. So I teach him differently, and I try to meet him. You want to meet your students where they're at, um, as well.
And that's good you said that because we just want to know, the youth pastor there, he got, students in his ministry and he's trying to, or he or she's trying to figure out, okay, how do I do these things? So what are some tools you use or some things that you do in disciple students? What will make it easy for them to, let's get this thing started.
Yeah. I'll say this. I'm gonna say three things and then I'll get to that. Sorry.
All right, cool.
So, because this is a question a lot of people ask, is what do I do if I didn't have a good model, right? What do I do if I didn't have a good mentor? What do I do? Because that was, in a sense, that was me, and partially it's my fault, partially it's their fault. Whatever it is, what it is. But I didn't reach out, right? And when they reached out to me, I would always make excuses. So it is on me. Uh,
Mm,
that's why conversations are like this are important. But I would say if you're a youth minister, you're a pastor, reach out to people, reach out to Herbert, reach out to me, reach out to other people and ask these questions and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. Yes, we can turn to Chat GPT and it has a lot of great stuff as well, but we can also turn to people. So reading,
yeah,
searching for the questions, praying, and really asking God. That's something that it's I should know, but really right now, like even in my business, I'm surprised at how often I don't ask God for wisdom in certain situations. I'm going through things and I'm like, oh, I got this. And then, it doesn't turn out the way I want. I was like, but I didn't even pray. I didn't even talk to God, right? Like I
right.
didn't even ask
Exactly.
him. I assume because I'm like, oh, I'm already above this. I'm already at this level. I don't have to do those little things. And
Mm-hmm.
so one I would say is ask them. I wanted to say this in case I don't get a chance, but don't get stuck in the buddy zone. I've done
Yeah.
this where I became too close of a friend with them and I became really good in their interests that whenever I started to correct or speak into their life or give them some wisdom, they didn't take it
They don't want to take it. Like be too.
because
We're
they're like, no, you're
friends.
just my friend. Yeah, you're too
Right.
much in a buddy zone, right? Like it's the worst thing for a man to get in a in a friend zone. The same thing for a youth minister to be in a buddy zone. If they think you're just their buddy, and
Mm-hmm.
they talk disrespectfully or they talk or they do different things or they're not listening to you, that's a bad thing. Keep them accountable. Another thing that was hard for me, yeah, early on was keeping people accountable. If I would ask them to
Mm.
do something, um, checking in on them and seeing how did they do because if someone's asking me to do something, but they're not going to check on me, then I may or may not even do it because there's no expectation.
And that's
Uh,
funny you say that because our pastor he has a saying. He said that you have to inspect what you expect.
I like that.
So if I'm asking somebody to do something, then I need to, like you say, I need to go follow up and seeing if they're really
Yeah.
doing it because it
Yeah.
happens all the time. You ask
Yeah.
somebody, it's like, okay, they're gonna do it, and we forget. Then they gonna forget.
Or yeah, or you think they're gonna do it because they said it, and they're like, "Oh, I forgot," or
Yeah,
if
you got to follow up. You got to say, all right,
yeah,
man. So how did this go?
this
No,
so
that's good.
yeah. So you saying that actually reminded me of a story when I was in youth. When I was in youth, when I was a youth. So a few weeks in or a few months in, I don't remember, but they gave me a list of all these students to call. And they said, you just got to call them, tell them who you are, and remind them about next service, right? Wednesday service. I hated doing that.
Mm,
I did like half of the list and then I got rid of the list. They never checked on me to see how I was doing. I hated that. So one is finding out what your students' strengths are and building those strengths.
mm,
Because I think a lot of time, and this is one thing that I hate about corporate America, is that they have people doing things that they're not good at. And the people that are good at it, they're not they don't put the people in the right positions, right? Like if you're playing football, you're playing basketball, if you put the person in the wrong position, you're gonna fail. But if
mm-hmm,
you find out what their strength is and you put them in that, they're gonna succeed, they're gonna excel. So finding out and knowing your people, like, oh man, you'll be a great fit for this, is
mm,
really important. So in ministry, but then also in life, like so many of my jobs when I got into management and I started putting people in position, they're like, why'd you put them there? And then immediately our sales just skyrocketed because they didn't know how to do the other part, but they knew how to do that really well.
mm-hmm.
And they did really well at that.
Right.
So keep them accountable. Another thing is don't have unspoken expectations. So it's good that you talked about inspect what you expect, but also don't have unspoken expectations. If there's something you expect, because
Yeah.
sometimes they get that all the time at home, right? Someone coming down on them because they did something wrong, and they're like, "I didn't even know. Like, how did I even? You didn't even tell me."
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And then also the last thing I'll say on that is challenge them, but also have grace and show that you're human too. Too
Mm.
often they
That's
don't
a
see
good one.
adults apologize, right? And then also having grace, like respecting where they're at in their journey, but challenge them. Even at my kids, that's one of the trickiest things. Knowing it when to have grace, knowing when to have mercy, knowing when to discipline, right? Like knowing those
Mm-hmm.
different things is so incredibly difficult because I'm like, am I supposed to do it at this point or at that point? And then just knowing that because um it can crush them and
Yeah.
it can
Yeah.
hurt them.
That's true. That's true.
I forgot what your question was, to be honest.
No, that's good. I just like like different methods. Like, what do you do? And so,
Well, that's right.
like you
That's right.
saying, like you giving them tasks, and then you following up with them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Make sure they're not throwing the list away when you
Yeah.
do something, or coming,
Yeah.
going and remembering scripture, coming back,
Yeah.
like kind of checking to see if they're ready. Another thing is just like knowing like when to, I guess reprimand or discipline someone that you're discipling, because you don't want to crush them, but at the same time, they do have to know. And I think another important part is staying out of the buddy zone, man. Just again, like it's cool, like you said, to connect, but if you get too
Yeah.
engulfed in that buddy
Yeah.
zone and like, oh, that's my friend, so homeboy, like, then yeah, you can't tell them anything now because
Yeah.
you guys are peers.
Yeah.
And if you try to play serious, because I'm actually discipling someone right now, and they are actually discipling someone. So it's one of the leaders, and she connected with one of the students at the local high school, and it is kind of like a almost like a friendship breaking off, like from the student side, like, okay, there's somebody that want to hear me, talk to me, yada yada yada. And so you know uh, my leader noticed that. It's like, they're talking to me like, they're my friends, like, okay, so you got to put up boundaries. Like, your job is to direct them, to scripture, to Christ, and that kind
Yeah.
of, kills that friend thing. And or if they speak about, a particular thing they're struggling with, but not in the, wanting to share type of way, but kind of like in a, like, hey man, this, like, girl, like if it's like a friend type of way, like you gotta, do that, because like you said, when the time comes, when you gotta point out that something is wrong, they don't want to hear it. And so I think that's pretty dope that you do that. And I think because one of the things that we do, and this is on Sundays, but we have a discipleship program, where we go through Ephesians, the whole work packet, and just walk it through. It's a 10-week program. And I think that's another way to do it. Let's say if you can't, they're not local and you can't connect with them outside of the church as often, then that's another way to bring them in, to at least guide them to that point to where they
Yeah.
want to, take it and run with it on their own. So there's a few things that sit up there. But if you can, we come to this part of the show to where if you can give one key tip on discipleship for someone that can start it tomorrow, something they can do that's tangible, and that's easy to get started, what would that one thing be?
Yeah. I think it's kind of what I mentioned earlier is if you're able, do something with them outside of the normal setting where it is, going to grab some coffee or boba, whatever they like
Mm-hmm.
drinking.
Oh, love some boba.
Yeah. Do something where it's outside of the norm and ask questions. Honestly, I mean, that's easy, but also just like genuinely being interested in them. So
Mm-hmm.
that's asking questions. Some of the students, they're seen as just kids. You don't know
Yeah.
nothing, you have no input. I would ask him, "Hey, what do you think about this situation? X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm thinking about." Or, give them something that maybe you are thinking about, like
Yeah.
design or whatever it is, and say, "What are your thoughts on that?" Just having those one-on-one conversations show them that their voice is important and they're learning how to use critical thinking skills as well.
Absolutely.
But I think those are some of the best things that they're simple. It's something that we should always be doing as well. But yeah, that's something that I would just kind of recommend.
Yeah, man, I think that's key. Like, asking questions from them,
Yeah.
um, or finding out about them, because students get students, right? They understand students. If you ask them about a particular program, also if you allow them to plan some stuff,
Yeah. I
that
was
is
gonna
going
get
to
to
be
that
key.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, hit that a little bit. What you think about
yeah.
planning stuff,
So
allowing them to plan things?
one thing I love that they did in when I was in youth group is we would have youth Sunday. So the students would run everything. They would preach, they would do worship, I would rap. Everything was ran by us. They would do tithe and offering, and we completely ran everything. So I love that because it wasn't showing it's showing that we're not the next generation, we're the generation now. Like they think that, oh, wait until I get in high school, wait until I get into college, wait till I become an adult, then my voice matters. But having them plan stuff, and honestly, sometimes even if their plan fails, it's not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good thing. It's a good thing for adults as well. But when we fail, but we look at it and we learn from it, and we say this thing sucks, but what went wrong? Then we can
Mm-hmm.
learn from it. Man, it's such incredible a way as well. But yeah, no, I think having them plan things and come up with ideas and seeing it succeed as well, not just failing, but also
Yep.
seeing it succeed, maybe the second time around. And those are some of the best things.
Mm-hmm. And that does something for the students too when they actually see those plans or have to learn from that. But when
Yeah.
it, yeah, man, when they succeed, it's like, wow, we did this. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? It's no longer
Yeah,
the
when
youth
they own
pastor
it.
doing it or
Yeah.
the leaders. It's, because we old. So to them, we ancient,
I know, that's
So
crazy, right?
man, man, we So that's what you, it's like, what's up, man? So that's how you old now, but they have the ideas, they know how to draw, and when they plan stuff, they also invite their friends too. So,
Yep. Yep. That's a
this is
win-win.
another podcast, but that's
Yep.
you can find discipleship even in that, like walking with them, you know, identifying those leaders in that planning committee, the student planning committee. Like, all right, this is the vocal leader. Let me, pour into them and, let me walk a little bit closer with them as they, you know, continue planning stuff with the other students. And that gives them, again, like you said, some ownership. But that's it, y'all. I mean, you can do that tomorrow. Pastors, leaders, volunteers, just find out, what the student is interested in. If you notice a student that's continuing to come, but you don't quite know them, or you haven't gone to that level of, okay, let's ask about their salvation or their walk with the Lord, that's one thing that you can do is first get in, find out about them, and you'd be surprised how many students would really want to take you up. Or okay, let's go deeper. I want you to
Yeah.
pour more into. They all looking for that. Even if they're not, they don't know that they need that.
Yeah.
I think you introducing that to them allows them to see like, wow, maybe I needed this. Like I didn't know I needed it,
I
but I
didn't know I
needed it.
needed this. Yeah.
Yeah, so don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, y'all, to jump in there and to ask. It's not all about having fun. We're not a glorified babysitting service. We're not just here to give parents date nights. We're definitely monitoring their growth and maturity in the Lord. So, but man, appreciate you, man, for jumping in, jumping on,
Sir.
whatever this is, what do you ever say on this podcast. But this is Keys to Student Ministry podcast. Please, please, please go ahead and hit the note or subscribe to Keys to Student Ministry
Smash
podcast
that
on YouTube.
like button.
Go ahead and do that. What's it? Rice pudding.
What?
This is smash that like button.
Yes, smash that like button. Go ahead and do that. Also, you can see us on Instagram. You can go to student or keys to student underscore ministry. It's the keys to the number two student underscore ministry on Instagram. And for our Gmail, you can go to keys to the number two still student ministry at Gmail. Gmail wouldn't let me have the regular one.
Oh,
So
man.
keys to student ministry Gmail. If you have any questions that you have about this particular topic or any other topic that you heard thus far, but definitely go ahead and subscribe, share with your friends, share with your pastors, share with anybody that you think can benefit from this. But that's it for this show, y'all. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you all next time.
Peace.